So it's 4 months later, and I've had to drain the tanks and refill them using the pool so I could put them up on a brick platform. This allowed me to easier access to the valves. In the process, I performed a few harvests, and this is the last of the second harvest. This clearly shows the layers of algae. The bottom is solid, and then it gradually becomes thinner as it moves to the top. This is the 5-gallon settling bucket. This is the first round for any water I'm processing, and the pool net is just a useful way to keep debris and bugs out of the bucket. So this water from tote 1 has sat for 2 days. I usually do about 4. But that allows all the water that we pulled from the bottom of tote 1, which would be thicker, to settle further, and then using an aquarium pump I can pull the water from the bottom of that into a jar before processing inside. Now I'm going to dump this back in for now, but looks like I will get quite a bit when I come back out to do the full harvest. Much of the algae has been put into the 3 carboys to continue the samples and allow me to restart a tank if necessary. This is where most of the first harvest ended up. In addition to using a 5-gallon bucket as an initial settler so that I don't have to process every ounce of water, I am also using a sun tea jug as a secondary settler so that I can separate out the larger particles from the bottom and pull the thinner water off the top and wick them at different rates accordingly. Much of the wicking process remains the same, and just as a general figure, I move about 30 ounces of water into the last jar there, which allows me to return that back to the totes as I progress through the harvest. I attempted to use a food juicer as a centrifuge to try and separate the algae and water. This ended up just making a mess. I may return to this at some point, but for now, this is a bust. I've also found that using a fountain pump is probably the most effective way for me to move water in and out of the totes, as well as for transferring between them. And as the final part of the current operation, I have the capture jar, which is the end of the road for most of the algae. This ends up being a sludge, and I'm using a pie tin, and just this patio gets in excess of 103 degrees in the sun to slowly reduce the amount of water within the algae. It is very interesting that giving it just a flat stir, it will start to bubble. And as these bubbles rise to the surface, the water level will drop, and then I'm using these 2 pans as evaporators. They will be added onto the top, and the process repeats as the algae gets thicker. This is tote 1. That's some pretty thick water there, just straight out of the tote. Tote 2 has three issues right now. One is that one side is collapsing. I have already drained and attempted to repair that, and it unfortunately collapsed the second time as well. I also have a volunteer tomato here growing at the entrance that I am not inclined to rip out at this time. The third issue is that this tote has not been as healthy as I would have liked. And so I have done a cross pump to try and improve the conditions. But the water is much thinner than tote 1. I'm hoping that with a little time that will improve. Given that we are now into August, and I don't know how many more hot days I have set up the pool to stretch overnight, and starting tomorrow, weather permitting, and start draining the tanks into the pool to evaporate off as much water as possible and begin the last harvest of the year, large harvest of the year, in preparation for winter. Hopefully it stays sunny and warm so that I can reduce the amount of water I have and collect the algae in a storable manner.